Hey, sports fans, and welcome. Ha, ha, ha,
Yeah.
ha,
Yeah.
ha. Don't know what that means, but we'll put subtitles down once Aaron fills me in.
James Brown.
Oh, you're gonna hit me off the top?
Yeah.
Can you count me in on this one? And then a little dun 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 dun, dun get on up, get on. Yeah,
Something like that.
exactly. I'm really glad the team behind us wasn't looking because
Yes.
I just made a fool out of myself. Basketball, Aaron, Christian, full-time hoops, Mr. Seabed. We are here at Lincoln.
Yes. The new Hive.
The newish Hive. It's been a couple years.
Yeah.
We've been down here for some playoff games last year for them beating Cathedral
man.
and some things. Coach Harper Harris, kind enough to let us come down here and talk a little hoops.
Yeah.
We are now. The plane has taken off the tarmac. We're still ascending up to cruising altitude, but the season has begun. We're a couple weeks into it. We've
Got
finished
a couple tournaments done. Yeah, we're moving on. Teams have played 5 or 6 games. We're getting a feel for who teams are aren't who we thought they were. I mean, it's a
They are
lot,
who we thought they were. Yeah,
exactly. A lot of moving parts right now.
A lot of moving parts. So with that moving parts, we put out our weekly top 10s. We can talk about Vista still being up. The unanimous one, Mission Bay is up there. Torrey and Foothills at that 3 to 4.
Yep.
We'll put the graphic up on Twitter and Instagram and all that, and you guys can debate it with us after the show because we don't need to take a lot of time because Aaron, it's still really early.
It really is. I mean, you've got, like I said, it's been a trend in Southern California in general. A lot of teams taking early losses. So what do you make of those losses when, 5 or 6 teams have already, lost the game? Vista probably would have been, a clear-cut number 1, but they lost to Mater Dei. Then they avenged that loss. That means Mission Bay probably would have been a number 1, but then they lost one to Great Oak, who's lost a couple since then. So, the one undefeated team that we have in our top 10 still would be, say, Torrey Pines. But does Torrey Pines have the strength of schedule as some of the other teams? That's up for debate. But like I said, right now it's just with so many different pieces moving together. It's probably going to take us another couple of weeks, the post-Christmas tournaments, before we really get a clear picture as to who the top 10 in San Diego is.
Well, it's definitely a different dynamic than a football where the tension builds every single week with so much on the line because
matters.
0-2 and 2-0 are so different. Basketball, you can even be the 7 or 8 seed in the playoff bracket and really kind of be like, man, we're going to have a night, as we saw with Lincoln last year when they took down Brandon McCoy and a very talented Cathedral team.
Exactly.
But it didn't matter because they're going to play defense, good for one solid night of basketball. That kind of dovetails me into, we'll switch the order around. I was going to give out game balls, but let's just talk about what you had said there for our jump ball segment this week, where we're going to toss something up in the middle of us and fall on different sides of it, as you will. Strength of schedule, wins, losses, road versus home, in San Diego versus non-San Diego. It's just the whole mathematical equation versus what some might describe as the eye test.
Yes.
I know that I just listed off a whole litany of things, but just kind of, are you analytics? Are you feeling it out? Are you, I don't care until I need to see how good that team was, so nothing for the first 2 weeks matters? Just kind of walk us through your mindset of how you value wins and losses right now.
Well, right now, obviously, we have somewhat of an idea of who, some of the good teams are. We've seen them during the fall, so we have an idea of what certain teams bring to the table. For me, I'm looking at just the body of work. It's a little bit of the eye test, a little bit about the names on the jerseys that you beat, and a little bit about how much you've challenged yourself. There are some undefeated teams out there that we haven't talked about. Let's say the Guajome Park Horn Frogs. I think they're 7-0 at this point. But will we put them in the top 10 just because they're undefeated right now? Beating the likes of Health Sciences and Preuss UCSD? Probably not.
And to throw onto that, Mount Miguel, 6-0, and a team that was in a championship last year.
Exactly. They were D3 champions, staying in D3 as it were, undefeated. Did they play all of the good teams in the Barron Matador Classic? I don't think so. I mean, Montgomery also went undefeated, but they didn't get an opportunity to play in the championship game. So what do we make of that? What do we make of their strength of schedule versus, let's say, a Foothills Christian, which is 2-3 right now, 3 losses, but they've played infinitely tougher competition than the undefeated team. And right now, all that will eventually work itself out. Mount Miguel will have some challenges down the road, play some tougher competition in the Grossmont Classic. We'll get to know more about who they really are, and we'll also get to know about who these other teams are that are in the top 10 that have losses. Are they for real, or will they fall by the wayside in the coming weeks? We'll know all that probably by January 1st.
I'll say this, I kind of fall on a little bit on the other side, that I just arbitrarily like wins in basketball versus other sports. Football, you take a D5 team, just let's pick some finals, Crawford, and you match them up against El Camino, who's in the D1 game. There is going to physically be a difference in the quality and capabilities of the two teams. You could say that Crawford's line just 99% of the time will not outpush El Camino's line. Crawford.
I think we're in agreement then.
But I'll say this on basketball. I think it would be a discredit to say someone like a Mount Miguel wouldn't be able to, on one given night, hang with a Torrey Pines.
I'll give you a really good example last year. You had Coronado.
Yes.
They were 30-3. Great team, great story. Actually lost one game in their league. Looked like the clear favorite to win Division III, but they didn't really play anybody. Their best win last year was against Carlsbad. What happened in them in Division III? They lost in the D3 quarterfinals. So that really tells you that even though they had the wins, the number of wins, that's a staggering season. If you're not playing anybody, what happens when you actually face a team that may not have a gaudy record, but has actually sharpened themselves against better competition? And I think basketball is just like football. You get better by playing better teams. And
I will say that I agree with you on that, is that you do improve yourself by playing better teams, but there is also the flip side of that coin where you improve yourself by learning how to execute well.
And learning how to win. There is something to be said about actually winning basketball games. And, the old system that we were under last year did value wins. That's why Coronado was the 1 seed. But again, if you're not playing anybody, you're going to get in those situations against teams that have played tougher opponents, maybe close losses, maybe blowouts, but they know what tougher opponents will bring to the table, and when they see someone that maybe doesn't match up to that, open season.
I think that it's also interesting, the last two things I would say is the game prep in basketball is not as rigorous in the regular season as it might be in the playoffs, where you really do tailor your offense or defensive approach to that team versus what are our strengths. So I can agree with you on that maybe something like the teams that Coronado was playing would not offer as much resistance as a playoff team who sat down and really said, how do we game plan to beat Coronado, as opposed to playing our game plan. Yeah. So that's just a little bit of the mindset of how we rank it, and why you will see teams like Foothills at 2 and 3 coming in that 4 spot. Exactly. When there are undefeateds not on the top 10. And it's not a disservice, and it's not favoritism to big names, and it's not even in basketball versus like a football, it's not an allegiance to one league, where in football the Avocado League almost gets a pass because everybody's good in the Avocado League, even a team like El Camino, who had 4 losses in league because they still lost them to open division team. That doesn't exist as much in basketball, so it really is just a collective view that we are trying to look for who, more than anything, is a well-rounded team, and who has that dynamics. Exactly. Speaking of well-rounded and dynamic teams, let's give out some game balls.
Okay.
You want to go first?
No, let you go first.
All right, look at that. Age before beauty.
Hey.
First one goes out to RBV for beating San Pasqual. RBV was a team that we met last week on the podcast, and we talked a lot about them having a tough league, and they're going to take some L's, but every win that they scratch out right now pre-league, I think shows us a little bit of what they'll look like after league, and a relative thing. So 3 and 3 for RBV. That's not a bad start, considering that they have transfers yet to get cleared and be a part of that team.
McLaughlin is going to be really big for them.
Absolutely. Yeah. Mount Miguel, 6-0. We already kind of talked about them. Just always like to give out game balls too.
And I will say this: I do like that Mount Miguel team. They were in my top 35. When I update my top 25, they'll be firmly in almost the top 15.
Somewhere in the teens.
Yeah, somewhere in the teens. They've got some really good pieces. James Allen, really good senior point guard. Also like McKees Dunbar, shooter on the wing. They have a really underrated transfer from Otay Ranch by the name of Darian Traylor, who's been big for them. So
another Darian. There you go. From Norwood to Traylor. Yeah. Next game ball goes to Poway for beating San Marcos. Ooh.
We didn't see that one coming. I didn't see that one coming.
Ooh. Yeah, that's saucy.
Not just the win, but how they won. I mean, they held one of the more diverse offenses in this section to 47 points.
Yeah, from scoring triple digits the week earlier versus El Cap to scoring 47 against Poway, that is more than just you shut one guy down and limited the threes. That's you shut everybody down and you did your job. You walk away with a game ball. Coronado, we already talked about them. They're back to their winning ways. Game ball for them beating Sweetwater, because we talk about everybody here. And finally, Madison 69, Kearney 68.
Man, Kearney's had some really heartbreaking losses. I mean, they lost one in overtime the beginning last week to San Diego. We'll just move on. Move past that one.
K for Pride, baby.
Yeah, K for Pride. That's right. But Madison credited them for getting that dub. That's big for them early on in the season.
Yeah, Coach Stutz is the homeboy. I like him from football season, and I know for me more than you, it bleeds through different sports.
Stutz is a good guy.
He's what's up.
Yeah. So
saw him show up at a football practice literally hours after getting hernia surgery, and was out there throwing balls. Yeah, pretty ridiculous.
Kudos to you.
Let's give out your game balls.
All right, so first one I'm going to give out is to Taurus Samuels. They not only did Vista beat Mater Dei to win the West Hills tournament, they beat them without the services of Isaiah Morris, who's out for the next couple of weeks with a sprained ankle. Taurus in the 2 games against Mater Dei averaged 28.5 points a game, and he's averaging over 20 points this year. And he's been doing what you're supposed to do as a senior, as a Division I signee. He's leading his team to victories, even though they're not at full strength. That's big time. So I'm going to give my first one to him. My second game ball is actually going to go to Orange Glen. Damian Miller, almost averaging a triple-double on the year. I was there at the Coast News Classic when they beat Murrieta Mesa. That was not a fluke win. Orange Glen controlled that from tip-off to final buzzer. Another game ball is going to go to Andres Tovar from that Orange Glen Patriots team. He's averaging almost 20 points a game, and he's an indispensable complement to what they have in Damian Miller.
It almost feels like every year Orange Glen just has more like one new freak athlete to just keep reloading with.
And it's funny because Tovar's not a freak athlete. He's about your height, your build, but just really gets the job done, can shoot it, has flashy handle, doesn't turn, but as flashy as he is, doesn't turn the ball over a lot. And defensively, he is a dog on defense, really gets after it. My other game ball, my final one, is going to go to Finn Sullivan, the MVP of the Coast News Classic. Full disclosure, I'm an employee of the Coast News as well. Full disclosure, I was there on behalf of the Coast News and Prep Hoops and Prep Insider at the Coast News Classic. All that aside, Finn Sullivan, huge game, 27 points, led his team on both ends, really did a number on Ryan Langborg in the final game. First 3 quarters, I think Ryan Langborg only had 7 points. You're not going to do a better job against one of the best scorers in the section than what Finn Sullivan did.
Well, it's definitely a different look this year for Torrey Pines. Anything sans Jake Gilliam looks like a smaller team, really but you also take away Esposito and
they're totally
nothing different though in terms of the results. So as always, Torrey Pines.
And who's the constant?
They got some dudes.
Who's the constant in all of that? John Olive.
Yeah, buddy. Yep. Just don't ask him to smile about it. Doesn't seem like necessarily he just doesn't like. He dislikes losing more than he likes winning. I don't know.
I'll tell you this though, he was all smiles on the bench during their win. I mean, he was
nothing but love, Coach.
High-fiving his guys. He was really into it.
Yeah, he's just one of the more even-keeled coaches. He doesn't ride the emotional wave. Doesn't get kicked out of games unless he absolutely needs to. Yeah, that Torrey team, we'll talk about them all season long. That Vista team, we'll talk about them all season long. It is always interesting, though, when you have somebody like an Orange Glen who you just know they're going to get someone. They're going to snipe somebody big at some point this year. A Poway has already done it. There's going to be those 1 or 2 games that show up where you go, wait.
Well, I mean, we already saw Otay Ranch get one against Canyon Crest.
Absolutely.
That was big, and it woke Canyon Crest up because they've been, they've just been blazing saddles ever since then.
Well, and in basketball, thankfully, you can bounce back from that and just be like, well, you remember that loss? Ooh, that got us going. Which brings us to our next subject, losses that will get you going.
Yes.
Last week, I motivated Valhalla to a W. Sup, Ramsey?
I told you they were going to win.
That's what I
Sup,
said.
Ramsey?
What I told you, they were going to win because I was going to pick against them, and
Something like that?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
You know, it's just that little boost.
Revisionist
That little
history.
boost.
There you
To the victors go the spoils.
Yes.
Lost all my train of thought there. Trying to make a funny history joke, but
So we're going to start with our...
we got games to pick. We got a 4-pack of games every week on this podcast where we're going to predict, discuss, pontificate, throw darts blindly at a wall. First one.
Ouch, somebody got hurt.
Montgomery.
This is fun.
Saints. What? This big.
This actually is going to be a good game.
Dude, this might be the best game yet played at the Saints new gym.
Yeah, I'll go with that. I mean, they played Grossmont and La Costa Canyon, and
Actually, yeah, it's not a huge sample size. I'm trying to be dramatic. You know,
something like that.
you can revoke my poetic license after this episode,
good,
and we can talk about that.
But very contrasting styles. Montgomery likes to get up and down, jack up a lot of threes. They'll press you. St. Augustine likes to slow down the tempo. They are really deliberate with their offense. They're very young. Believe it or not, Montgomery's the experienced team in this one. Saints starts 5 sophomores. Montgomery starts 3 seniors and 2 juniors. So who gets this one? It's gonna be at Saints. So you've got to go with Saints in the home win. I'll say this: if Montgomery can get it done, it will not be a surprise, but it will also be the biggest win in Aztecs modern history.
I can absolutely agree with that. I can absolutely agree with your take on seniors and leadership, and we need to get this win now to solidify who we are. But I just can't go against Ogbo and Hopt. And they have championship experience. We don't need to talk about who is or isn't playing there anymore, because to boil it down to one player leaving would be an insult to all the other seniors that graduated from that team last year to make any difference. And there was some really good seniors on last year's Saints team.
I didn't say anything.
And yeah, so that's why I'm saying I'm not going to get into who they do or don't have, because they don't have a whole graduating class.
Yeah.
But that being said, Chibuzo Ogbo and Hopt, and it's just a really good team that to me has a sky is the limit type of vibe because of how young they are. So I go Saints.
Okay.
Our next game, El Cap at Sweetwater. New coach out at El Cap, trying to change the culture around a little bit, trying to make things a little more athletic, stretch the court. They took a bad loss to San Marcos, but football players weren't there. It's early season. It's still transition.
They've had some good wins,
They've had some good
too.
wins.
Yeah.
Same with Sweetwater. They've taken some bad losses. So this is 2 teams still figuring out their identities. Who gets the dub?
I'm going to go with El Cap on this one. I know it's a home game for Sweetwater, but I do see what El Cap is doing. The Vaqueros, brand new coach Jeff Bickford, he didn't have a lot of success at Crawford, but to be honest, there hasn't been a coach who's had a ton of success at Crawford. So he's got Jake Fitzner knocking down threes. He's got a freshman to watch. Keep your eyes on Dreonte Raymond. He's one of the section's unknown freshmen, but he is going to be one of the best ones when it's all said and done. I like their size in the middle. They've got a 6'6" kid who actually, I think, is he's the nephew of Marty Ellis over at Olympian. So they've got size, they've got athleticism. They defend. Chase Lovato, big-time football player, also really good defensive stopper. I think they get it done.
Absolutely agree with you on that. Across the board, is sometimes you just need to get to that second school, learn in retrospect, with hindsight being 20/20, about what did and didn't work at your first stop. So Bickford, you see the writing on the wall that this could be an upward trend for the next couple of years at El Cap. So I will agree with you. I think they take the dub, and I think they take it as a statement win. I think that we are completely free and clear of football season. Players are back in that rhythm. They figured themselves out.
One more thing I want to bring to on the other side, you've got 2 very talented freshmen from Sweetwater. CJ McMillan, who's actually a club teammate of Dreonte Raymond, 6'4" kid, was the MVP of the Cream of the County 2021 top game. And then also Jimmy Maddox, a name that is going to be very familiar to Sweetwater fans. He's the younger brother of Spencer Maddox, the school's all-time leading scorer.
There you go. Next game, Scripps Ranch at Ramona. I'll take this one first.
Okay.
I like Ramona. I think Scripps Ranch doesn't have quite the offensive punch that they had last year. And
With Batre?
yes.
With all the
And I think that they are still trying to figure out where that comes from. So I go Ramona.
Okay. I'm going to go with Scripps Ranch because while they don't have that offensive punch, they grind you to a halt because of the style they play. That Princeton offense limits possessions. And Ramona, a team that does like to score, get up and down, when you get ground to a halt against that type of an offense, it's anyone's game. And I'm going to take the game experience of a Michael Phaneuf and a couple of their other holdovers, and I say it's going to be a very close one, but I'm going to pick the Falcons.
Final one, Foothills playing La Jolla.
Ooh, interesting one.
Yeah, right?
It's interesting.
It's kind of an interesting, kind of like someone who picks these games knows how to keep things fresh, knows how to keep things interesting.
Okay.
Don't worry, we'll pick against plenty of good teams, but I'm not going to start with that yet.
No.
I'm going to go with Foothills, but I think that this loss tells us a lot about whether or not La Jolla is in the D2 driver's seat.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think La Jolla has some pieces in Division. I think they moved up to D1 now.
My apologies.
But
La Jolla's screwed. They're done.
But remember, Division I is split into the Open Division and the NIT. So they could very well be playing. They could very well be playing for that 9, 10, 11, 12 seed by the time season's over. I'm picking Foothills too. I think their weaponry is very diverse, and the thing that really is scary at this point is that the last 2 games of that battle zone up in Corona was their best basketball. They're gelling together. Tayshaun Cherry is coming into the fold. There's better chemistry, and that is the recipe for a good win. I think it's a convincing one. I think Foothills win this by 10 to 15.
Just dovetailing off of that, how good is Derek Carter-Hollinger as the 1-2 punch there with Tayshaun? Because it seems to me like right out the gate, huge numbers. Is that sustainable all season long? I
don't think it's sustainable to the point where he's gonna have 30 points games, on the regular. But I do think that DJ is coming into his own. Here's the crazy thing about DJ that a lot of people don't realize. He just celebrated his 16th birthday this week. He's a junior. There are freshmen that are older than Derek Carter-Hollinger. So he's just now scratching the surface of his potential. And I'm going to say that while he won't have like those explosive games consistently, he will give you 20 a game, 15 a game during the season, and he's going to be a great Robin to Tayshaun's Batman.
Just speaking of random facts that we're spouting about Derek Carter-Hollinger, people also don't always know that he won a title as a freshman with O'Farrell. Right. In one of the better championship games I have ever seen, because it went triple overtime and the Preuss kids were fouling out, and some jabroni comes off the bench for Preuss and scores his first goal or his first basket of the season from like back here, just chucks one. And yeah. So, but Derek Carter-Hollinger had a huge game there. So he is somebody that I think when you get to the stretch run, you'll see not only the points, but the poise.
The poise, the experience,
Yeah. Speaking of poise, we're going to take a quick break and see if we can find some kids to talk to and see if they have poise in an interview. Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you very much for putting up with us to this point. We'll see you back in a second.
Hey.
Okay. We found some esteemed people that once again are taller than me and better at basketball than me to talk to. You guys want to go ahead and introduce yourselves?
Jeff Harper Harris, head basketball coach, Lincoln High School.
Raekwon Everett.
Torrance Farr.
So, guys, let's just start with, we're a week or so into the season now. You guys, great playoff run last year, so there's some experience and some expectations on the team. Just what's the vibe been? I know that we don't need to talk about wins and losses and all that. Just, take us inside the gym so far this season.
It's a learning. It's our motto is inexperience versus comprehending. We got a lot of inexperienced young players, freshmen, sophomores. So, you got to teach. And after a while, keep teaching. Then you get to the point, are you comprehending or is it inexperience? And in the league that we're in, inexperience has to go real quick.
It's a new group. I'm having fun. A lot of young players that I'm playing with, me and Torrance, and just trying to work on being a better team, being better role models.
We just got to be a better team as one, work hard on and off the court in classrooms, hit the weight room hard, just have to have fun and compete.
So Raekwon, this question's for you. Obviously, last year you would have been a really important part of that run. Tore your ACL. You've been rehabbing. What's your mentality coming back, and how do you feel that you're doing so far managing the injury?
I mean, right now, I'm not focused on scoring and all that. I'm worried trying to get the team ready for league. So dropping 30, that's really nothing to me. I'm just trying to work on getting my teammates involved. I mean, eventually, when I have to, I will. Whoever's on the floor with me, I'm going to kill them. That's my mentality. But as far as my goals for this season, I'm trying to go to Open. I'm trying to win Open. I'm trying to win state.
Goals. Torrance, you last year you were on the floor, played an important defensive role for that team. You've expanded your role into offense. What did you do during the offseason to prepare for that?
Well, I've been hitting the weight room, not as much, but I should have been hitting a little bit more harder than what I used to do. But just been working on my shot a little bit, and yeah, so I've been working on it.
And Jeff, this question's for you. You just talked about the Western League. It's loaded year in, year out. And the young guys, Xavion Stevens, Marvin Washington, Devin McCoy, those guys are going to have a trial by fire. How valuable do you feel that, these close games you've had during the beginning of the season are going to be to those guys moving forward into league?
I mean, the Western League is loaded, like you said. I mean, you're in a league with top-ranked players, top-ranked schools. Mission Bay is loaded, and Saints, and even though Tayshaun transferred, they still good. And Cathedral with freshmen. So our freshmen got to understand the game, the strength, the physical aspect of the game. I think Marvin X, we got Reggie Everett back now. We got Devin, Marquise. So we have a sophomore class that they're going to have to help. I mean, you can't hold them back and play them in JV and say they can, get them for another year. They actually have to step up in the fire. And I think the close games we've had, I think on one end we've been lucky. Hopefully at the end of the year, we're finishing, because it's always right now it's our third quarters that's been getting us. We're not finishing in the third, but definitely going to have to utilize our sophomores. These two guys, I'm putting a lot on their shoulders to lead on and off the court, in the classroom, in the community. So they're going to have to step up and take it, and they're going to have to deal with being pretty much the yelling, yelling at them too. They got to take it and distribute it. But I like our group, And, like you said, I'm not really worried about our record now. We're not playing until after Christmas. I did that for a reason, and that's to get back in the gym and learn. We got to teach, and here we have to teach the fundamentals. A bunch of young kids that athletically be great, but you're playing against Mike Hopp, who's been doing it for years, and Mission Bay, who's played their kids all summer. It's going to take more than just throwing the ball up and going to run up and down the court.
I'll just close it out, and if you don't want to answer this, I totally understand, but is there one game that you might be circling a little bit on the schedule of, I think that might be an opportunity for us to come out of our shell and show people what we got?
Man, we got Mission Bay. We open up with Mission Bay that Friday, January 6th, I think, right when we come back from school. And, me and my rankings, I think they're number one. You got a class that lost in the quarters to us last year. I know for a fact it's vengeance on their mind. Good coaching staff, great bunch of kids over there. I know they got a mission, and one of their missions starting with coming into Lincoln and knocking us off like we knocked them off last year. So I will circle that game. But for us, every game is important. We don't look past nobody until you beat them, because on any given day anybody can be beaten.
Yeah, same thing. Can I all go for that Mission Bay?
Probably Saints. Mission Bay too, but if we go to Open, I'm trying to play Foothills.
I'll say Mission Bay.
I like the expectations here. I feel like if I hang around with these guys for a little bit longer, I'm going to get loftier goals in life, and, I'll move out of my parents' house, I'll get a girlfriend. Like, things will start happening good in life with the expectation that these guys set in life. On that note, we're out of basketball stuff to talk about, and Aaron and I will see you next week from a different gym. And I see some people flying around. I think we might try and get our first dunk submission of the year right now. You guys think you got someone on this team that can dunk?
No.
No? Ouch.
We're very good later.
Well, there you go, sports fans. We'll see you next week.